Welcome to Small Business Saturday.
Welcome to Small Business Saturdays video series with your host and my husband.
And my dad, Aaron Montgomery.
Join the conversation.
Let's talk some business.
All right. Welcome into Small Business Saturdays. My name is Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me over at oursuccessgroup.com. And I am excited to talk to you guys today about this idea of our comfort zone, right? And kind of what that means, what that looks like, getting into the nitty gritty, getting down deep into the idea of a comfort zone. Coming off a great show last week with my friend Liz about adaptability, right? This is a way to adapt, to get outside of our comfort zone. And we all have that space. It's that comfort zone that we retreat to. But I think we all can agree that if we want to have success in our businesses, our personal lives, or really any aspect, we have to get outside of that comfort zones. You know, think about it this way. Those of us that have a partner or a significant other, we had to get outside of our comfort zone, right? Maybe you had to ask them out. Maybe you had to answer the call. Maybe you had to, go on a date that with somebody, you had just met or things like that, right? And so think about any success that you've ever had in your life. It took you doing something that you didn't previously know how to do. And when we do things that we don't know how to do, that's uncomfortable, right? So even going back to more simple beyond like finding a partner, right? To be able to walk, we had to get outside of our comfort zone. Our comfort zone was being held and having all of our needs taken care of. And then, all of a sudden we figured out we could get to the things that we wanted by rolling over and being a little bit mobile, but hands and knees were pretty comfortable. And then we were like, wow, I can't move as fast as the other people around me that I see walking on 2 feet here. So we had to kind of go, oh, well, let me stand up. Oh, that's a little wobbly. I fell down. It hurts a little bit. This is outside of my comfort zone, right? But we didn't just go, okay, well, it's my comfort zone. I'm going to go back to it. I'm just going to hang out with the rest of the babies on the ground and stay this way for the rest of my life, right? So getting out of our comfort zone is something that I think is really important for us. But many times I think that we get the idea that to get out of our comfort zone, our concept of this is very different from what the reality of it is, right? And so I think that's where I know I found myself for a long time. I know a lot of people that I talk to, when we start talking about getting outside of their comfort zone, what it feels like when we say that and what the reality of how we actually do that or how we can get out of that are two different things, right? We think that we just have to, rip off the Band-Aid or jump across this massive chasm and or face that very scary thing head on without any warning or practice or training, right? It'd be like, saying, you've never been in a combat situation in your life, and all of a sudden you go, oh, well, I'm just going to go fight somebody, that's been an MMA fighter for their entire lives and they're passionate about it. That's getting outside my comfort zone, right? And could you do that? Sure. Would it work out? Would you look back on it and go, man, that was a good idea? Probably not, right? But that's how we look at our comfort zone. We think we have to go from point A to 0.1 million, point Z plus, right? But we really just need to take little small steps. We want to go from point A, and heck, half the time it doesn't even have to be from point A to point B. It can be from point A to point A1, right? Point 0.51, right? That kind of thing. So I actually started thinking more about this when I saw a post. This is a gentleman that I've been able to meet through the Success Principles and his work at what he calls Mountaintop Motivation. In fact, I've even been a part of a virtual training program that he did at one point. His name's Jake Ballantyne. He's a fantastic guy. I've really enjoyed listening to him and learning from him and understanding kind of his ideas. And I think we have a lot of similar ideas. So I saw this post that he put out on Facebook the other day, and it actually had this graphic. I took the graphic and added some of my own logos and stuff to it just to make it feel good, make it feel right to share here. And so I'm going to share that in a little bit. And we're going to go over some of the things in that. But here's the text that he shared with this. He says, the best way I have found to grow is through intentionally expanding my comfort zone. And I wanted to highlight that word intentionally, right? So keep that in mind. We through intentionally expanding my comfort zone. And he goes on to say, we all have a zone where we're comfortable, and we all have a zone of activities where we feel uncomfortable. I think the other part to highlight that we're going to talk about here today, a zone of activities, right? That's action. Right? Taking action can feel uncomfortable, but we need to take action, right? Okay. So he then goes on to say, the cool thing is that when you go outside your comfort zone and realize you are okay, your comfort zone expands a little bit, right? And then we do it again and it expands more and more and more, right? We don't have to make huge steps outside of our comfort zone to grow. We just need to intentionally step outside to grow. Right. So that's what he said. And that's where a lot of this came from. I'm like, okay, this is what I need to be talking about. It was a topic that I felt like could be very useful for both myself and everybody else out there. So let's dive into that here today. Kylene checking in. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. Yeah, we're moving the time around a little bit. And so I know that makes it tough for people to show up live. So anyhow, I'm just trying. So if noon is a time that you think is good, then I'd suggest getting out there and sharing with people right now. Share it and post it on social media. Say, hey, come join us live here. We'll probably be talking for the next 25 minutes or so. So get out there and share that. All right, so let's get into this here, right? I took that quote from Jake, and I highlighted a few words there: intentional, activities, right? Through activities. What did he say exactly again? Zone of activities. I like that. To me, that's action, right? So by taking, and here's the other key word: small, right? I want you to take small intentional steps outside of your comfort zone, and then you can finally have the growth that you've worked so hard to find, right? And so what I want to do here for the rest of this is I want to hear from you guys what you guys think. What are some ways that you've gotten outside of your comfort zone, and what are some ways that you'd like to get outside of your comfort zone? Like, for example, what things do you need to do that you need to do, but you haven't been able to get outside of that comfort zone yet, right? And so and then I want to share some strategies, some thoughts, some ideas, and reviewing this graphic we're going to look at here in just a little bit. So because here's the reality: is I've been a part of, I know that there is remarkable expansion that occurs once you get outside of your comfort zone. I know everything in my life today that is valuable to me, that brings me opportunities that I love and I'm passionate about. It all came from me getting outside of a comfort zone. And will also tell you that everything that I have in my life right now that is somewhat holding me back, right, that I haven't been able to overcome yet, are ways where I haven't been able to get outside of my comfort zone yet, right? So ultimately, we have to get comfortable being slightly uncomfortable. And think about that for a second. Ultimately, we have to get comfortable being slightly uncomfortable, right? The key is slightly. It could be that uncomfort of just asking a question about something when you're not clear, right? Because that becomes uncomfortable. If I am, let's say I'm at a training event, or let's say I'm tuned in right now on Small Business Saturdays, and you're like, well, I don't really understand what Aaron's trying to say there. If you ask a question, right, there could be a fear that shows up. Maybe that fear is, I'm going to look quote unquote stupid, or, I'm going to look like I don't understand this concept, and therefore Aaron's going to think badly of me. The other people watching are going to think bad. The other people in this training are right. That's all external, right? And none of that matters. Who cares? If I did think that by you asking a question was like, what a dummy or whatever, blah, then that's on me. That's my problem, right? I'm the one that needs to fix and repair that, right? That's my outward perception. That has nothing to do with you, right? The fact that you took the initiative to clarify and figure out what it is that so you can understand it, that shows that you're actually very intelligent because you're trying to actually implement it, right? We can all sit and consume and consume and consume and consume. And oh, I've got all this great information. And then you do nothing with it because you don't understand it. You don't know how to implement it. You haven't taken enough action. You haven't asked enough questions, right? So that's one. Or maybe it's using a new technology, right? It's I don't know how to do it, right? I I find that one of the best things that has ever been part of who I am is the fact that I like pushing all the buttons, right? I get my phone out and I put a new app on here or something like that, and guess what? I just oh okay. What is that setting? Oh, let me go into there, right? Let me go all the way down into. I'm holding my phone down here, and do that. So like it's that fear of action. Like, oh, am I going to break it? Am I going to screw it up? I don't know. Maybe, but guess what? Delete it. Put it back on there, right? You got a new piece of equipment. Oh, I don't know how to use this. I'm going to ruin a mug. We talked about this on Two Regular Guys yesterday, right? There is going to be spoilage. Get excited about that. That's an opportunity to learn, right? And so we just have to do these little slight things. We don't have to make these big, massive jumps. And so with that being said, let me show you this. I'm going to put this up on screen with me here. And we'll put that down. So I forgot about that. Okay. So this is our comfort zone. This is the graphic that Jake had shared that really kind of got me thinking. And I'm like, oh man, this is really good. So let's dive in and go through these zones. And then once we go through these zones, then we'll talk a little bit more about some more strategies and some other things like that. But like I said, I want to hear what you guys, couple things, right? What are your strategies for getting outside of your comfort zone? What are things that you know you need to do, right? That you're sitting in your comfort zone, you're staying there. And then anything you want to discuss around comfort zone. So bring it in here to our discussion here today. If you are tuned in live, if you're on the podcast version, just reach out to me at consultaaron.com and let's discuss it. Right? It's a free resource for you to just reach out and you can get a different perspective, right? At no charge to you, but you have to take action, right? There we go. There's the action. You got to do it. All right. So let's start with the comfort zone, right? And let me also be very clear about this side of it. The comfort zone is not a bad thing. In fact, we're trying to expand our comfort zone. And so the comfort zone is a very good thing. We just need to expand it, right? The comfort zone is a great place for us to rest, for us to recharge, to rejuvenate it, right? And whatnot, and just be in stasis for a little bit. The human body needs that. We're very cyclical, right? The circadian rhythm of day and night, and we got to rest, we got to sleep. Sleep's very important, right? Comfort zone, we want to be comfortable when we're sleeping. And so very clear that comfort zone is not a bad thing. The idea here is to expand it. The idea is not to just blow up your comfort zone and just make it go away and make everything your comfort zone, right? The idea is just to push out on it slightly and keep getting out to that growth zone that we're going to get to, right? But here's what happens for us is we have this nice, tight, little tiny comfort zone that just cuddles us up, makes us feel all nice and cozy, right? And then we stay in it. In fact, we hide in it, right? We decide that our story is our story, and then we just start complaining. We start blaming everything outside of us. We commiserate with others and woe is me. I've got it worse than you. Nope, I've got it worse than you, right? And that's why, and then our comfort zone gets tighter and it just hugs us a little bit more. And again, we've decided that that's our story, right? We've decided that, whatever the situation is, that I have no control over it. I just give away my power and I say, oh, I'm just going to stay here in the comfort zone, right? But here's what I encourage you to do. When you feel like there's more for you, when you are realizing that you've got a dream or a passion that you're not fulfilling, right? There's a purpose that's bigger than yourself that you're not fulfilling. You just don't feel fulfilled, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what it was for me. I had so many great opportunities. I did cool things, but ultimately I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. But I needed to get out of side of my comfort zone of working for somebody else and go and do our success group out there, right? And I didn't just jump into it. We'll talk about that. In fact, I can just talk about that. I went and got together with a friend of mine, Todd Downing, and okay, now I can, right? And then, oh, okay, now I need to expand my comfort zone, and things change and we evolve and yada, yada, yada. So, the comfort zone is not a bad thing, but what we need to do is we need to understand we have that trigger when we're not feeling fulfilled. We feel like there's more for us. That trigger, for a lot of folks, will make it to where we get tighter into that comfort zone, right? We hide, we go deeper into the cave, and we just solidify that story that we've decided is our story. But what I challenge you to do is say, that's my trigger to get comfortable being slightly uncomfortable, right? And so that's when now we move from the comfort zone into the fear zone. And this fear zone is kind of that barrier keeping us from the growth zone, right? And I think about it this way. I don't know if this was what it was for you guys, but when I was a little kid, right, and there were monsters in the closet and I was on my bed, as long as I didn't stick my arm off of the barrier of the bed, I was safe, right? The monsters couldn't get me in my bed. I had the covers up, and the monsters couldn't get me there. But when I stuck my arm outside of that, they're coming. Oh my gosh, I'm freaked out. The monsters are getting me, right? And that's the way it is with the fear zone that surrounds our comfort zone, right? This is that story that we've created, right? I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I haven't been given the same opportunities. My parents did this. My relationships made me this way. Fear is creating all of those things. Fear creates that lack of self-confidence. Fear creates that need to find excuses. Fear creates the what's that one down there? I can't see it. It's a little too small. I'll have to get my glasses on. All right, we'll make it a little bit bigger. Where are you? There. There. By affecting others. Being affected by others' opinions. There we go. Sorry. I don't know why that was so hard for me to read. So fear brings all of those things to us, right? And so that's what we have to overcome, right? What the ideal thing for us to do is we got to make that fear zone, that little bubble that's around our comfort zone. We have to try to make that as tiny as possible by using some of the tools and tips and tricks that we've talked a lot about here on the Small Business Saturday. A ton of the work that I do with folks inside of our success group, right? We have to overcome our fear. We have to understand that it's just an acronym. Fear is just a fantasized experience appearing real. And ultimately, when we come up against a fear, again, that can be another signal, another trigger for us to say, okay, this is important. Okay, I need to get comfortable being slightly uncomfortable. Because then this is the leap that we have to make, right? If we can make that fear zone as small as possible, then we can make that leap into the learning zone. And this is where the problem lies, is we think that we have to jump from comfort zone all the way out into the growth zone, and we have to do this big scary thing, right? But what we actually have to do is we just have to go, okay, there's that fear zone. I'm going to push it out and lean into that learning zone, right? I'm going to try things. I'm going to take little steps, right? We don't have to make that huge leap. The learning zone is where we kind of face a challenge, right? Oh, okay, I'm not going to go and go head into it, but I'm going to look at it and I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to get a little bit closer. Okay, I could try this. Here's a way that I could get around it or over it or through it, right? I'm going to, okay, what do I need to learn, right? I need to learn how to overcome my fear. I need to learn how to do this thing, right? I need to sign up for the mastermind program so I have accountability, right? You start recognizing in that learning zone that you need to expand your comfort zone, right? So let me share a couple of stories with you here real quick. All right. So as you guys know, hopefully, if you're new to this, you might not know, but one of the things I love to do is I love to get out there and present and speak and share the success principles and the business fundamentals that I've learned and developed over time. And, so I enjoy it. I had an opportunity not too long ago to be up on stage in front of about 250 people. And, it was really fun. Last year there was about 450 people in the room, and it just, it motivated me because you could kind of see how people were taking it in, right? But I didn't go from like being afraid of public speaking to being in front of 450 people, right? So I had to get into that learning zone, right? I had to get better at it. I'm still learning, right? I still lean back into the learning zone and figure things out because we're growing all the time. But the way I did it, right? And everybody's path is going to be a little bit different, but how can you break that down, right? And so when I wanted to, I knew that my comfort zone needed to be expanded. That fear was there. The comfort zone was hugging me a little bit too tightly, and so I needed to figure out how could I become a speaker, right? Well, the first thing I did is I looked around and I said, who do I know that's a great public speaker? Well, the person that stood out to me is my best friend, Terry Combs. That guy can talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime. He's got the greatest stories, even though now 15 years on, I know all of his stories. I've heard him so many times, right? I'm like, wow, okay, there's somebody that gets it, right? There's somebody that knows what to do. I didn't realize until later that his strategy to become a public speaker was the same as mine, right? He actually had the same thing. And so he looked for other people and then he would do presentations with them. Terry and I started the podcast together to where I had that, I still had a little bit of my comfort zone. I'm hanging out with my buddy, right? But I also was now in front of other people, right? And then we would do a presentation together and we learned from each other. And his slides were like one word. Mine was a paragraph that I was reading and it was terrible. Right. And then we both kind of met in the middle where, he started adding some pictures. I stopped with all the text right. But we just got better. Right. And then I did that. Right. And then I did a small presentation in front of just a few people. Then I did my own things. Right. And just it developed and until one day down the road, now I'm doing that. Now, have I reached where I want to go? Have I gotten all the way outside my comfort zone there yet? No, not at all. I want to be able to do more. I want to be able to go be on a stage with somebody like Jack Canfield, right? Why not? Let's do that. But I've got to get outside of my comfort zone. I got to change that story, right? I got to lean into that learning zone. And then the second thing I wanted to share before I get on to the growth zone is all about okay, so we have this idea of, okay, we're doing a big thing, right? We have those physiological triggers that start happening, right? My palms get a little sweaty, I get nervous, I get this dryness of mouth, right? And things like that. And I go, oh my God, I'm nervous. I freak out, right? Maybe that's what you do. I know until I learned about this, I had those moments where I would just psych myself out, right? Heck, I still struggle a little bit to go ride on a roller coaster, and it has nothing to do with riding on the roller coaster. It has everything to do with standing in line and getting freaked out. Right? If I could just walk right up and get on the roller coaster and go, I'd probably be able to do that a lot more. It's, you go to Disneyland or Disney World or wherever, and I've got to stand in line for 45 minutes listening to everybody scream. And, some people come off, they look horrified and, and I'm telling myself all those stories. Right. But we get ourselves worked up and we think this nervousness is like a bad thing. But the reality is that's our body saying, cool, I'm ready. I'm going to turn on all these things. I'm going to send you some, I'm going to send you some different chemicals. I'm going to get your alertness. I'm going to get you focused. Right. And we're ready. But what happens is a lot of times in those moments, we're doing something new. And when we do something new, at first we don't succeed. Right. We might have a failure. We might look a little bit silly. We might, stumble over our words, whatever that is. We might not achieve the goal. We might lose the game, right? And so we've now then tied that back saying, oh, when I get this nervousness feeling, it leads to failure. But the reality is when you get that nervousness feeling and then you do the action, that leads to learning. That leads to potential growth. And so that's an opportunity to partner up and say, okay, right? So let's just use something simple. Let's say that you needed to engage with your community, to grow your business, and you just know that you really need to do a video and share who the heck you are so people can get to know you, right? And you get nervous, but go back and watch the very beginning of Two Rare Guys podcast, or go back and watch the very beginning of Small Business Saturdays here, right? It's not good. Some people might delete those things. I've thought about it, right? There's moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, you were terrible, Aaron, right? And you start telling these stories. But you know what? I learned. I figured it out. I'm getting better, right? We figure out how to share it more. And so that's the learning zone. That's that where you got to take that nervousness, you got to take those kind of butterfly feelings and realize that that's just your body's way of saying, okay, let's do this, right? Let's get excited about it. So Kylene says, I like that explanation a lot. Those feelings of nervousness are not a bad thing. Rather, it's our body preparing us for the experience, for sure. So let me know how you guys kind of overcome some of these things or expand your comfort zone. What is it that, is your strategy? And then also, what are the things that you need to overcome, right? And yes, I get it. I might call you out. I might hold you to that, right? And that's okay. But here's what will definitely happen. If you ask me, if you reach out to me, I will definitely help you figure out what are the baby steps that you can do. What are the strategies that you can put in place to get to expand that comfort zone. So if you're tuned in live, or like I said, if you're listening on the podcast version, just go to consultaaron.com and let me know. And like I said, yes, I will hold you to it. And yes, I will help you get there as well. All right. So let's talk about that last zone and kind of close this up. This last zone is the growth zone, right? That's what we're really trying to get to, right? This is where we start having the successes. This is where we start feeling really good about this. This is where we start, kind of getting our confidence going, right? And this is, on the graphic here, it says, this is where we live the dream. This is where we conquer, objectives, right? We get to that end goal, right? And the other thing it says on there is it says finding purpose. And I think this is really key, right? Because we're talking about going from comfort zone into growth zone, but I'm also a very big fan of the whole idea of reverse engineering things, right? And so I'm not saying I want you to go from comfort zone right into growth zone. What I'm saying is I want you to go out and make your growth zone, design it the way you want it. Find what your purpose is, uncover it, right? It's not that we have to find it necessarily. So that I might need to update the graphic here. We need to uncover our purpose. We need to get more language to it. We need to have a better understanding of it. And then we need to then also set goals, right? We need to have that vision out there that will help us kind of act like a magnet that draws us to that comfort zone, that drags us through the fear zone, right? When we have a clear vision of what living the dream means, when we have goals that are very specific, that we can visualize ourselves reaching, right? And we know what our purpose is, that it's bigger than just being alive, right? Because everybody has a special gift, period. I will argue that with anybody. Everybody has a special gift. There's something that they do better than anybody else on the whole planet. In fact, there's something that they do better than anybody else who's ever lived on this whole planet. It's their unique combination of all of their strengths put together to say, this is your unique skill. Now, some people's skills might look very similar, but everybody does it a little bit differently, right? It's like no two fingerprints are the same. So just like no two fingerprints are the same, no two purposes are the same. And we just have to dig into that. Right. And so this is why it's so important to me to clarify our reason, because then that gives us that magnet. That gives us that, like I said, we got to first shrink the fear zone down by really getting a handle on what it is. Right? Because when we understand something, it becomes less scary. So when we understand fear, it gets less scary, but it's still going to be there. So we still have to pull ourselves through and then get into that learning zone. That learning zone is what is the important, that's that stepping stone. That's where we give ourselves the grace and space to fail. This is where we give ourselves the time to go, yeah, I'm learning, right? I didn't learn how to walk overnight, right? I didn't learn to do anything. We didn't learn to talk. No skill that you do very well right now was not something, right? Yes, we have natural abilities, but we have to refine the skill, right? And that's the same in business. We have our natural abilities, things that we should be drawn to, but we have to refine those things. We have to get good at them. And then we also have to figure out how to implement them and make that part of what our business is. So we have to have that. And then ultimately, to really make the growth zone something that we can live in, right? That we can really kind of make part of our comfort zone, continue pushing that out and continue growing that comfort zone, is we then have to have this review cycle mindset, right? We have to crave feedback and then work at implementing things small each day that then allows us to say, yep, okay, do more of that. Oh, nope, that didn't work. Okay, let's refocus. That's a different way to do that. And just keep doing that, right? That's what I call the review cycle mindset. So there we go. That's expanding our comfort zone. Mo, thanks for checking in. I'll have to watch the replay to catch the whole thing. Absolutely. Please check that out. I'm going to go ahead and take the graphic off here real quick, and if we need to go back to it, but let me know. Well, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on how you see your comfort zone expanding. What is it that you need to do to expand your comfort zone, right? So let me know about that. I don't know if Kylene, you're still tuned in, but certainly share anything that you're working on. Chuck, I know you said good morning earlier, so let's be vulnerable. Mo, anything that shows up for you or anybody else that is tuned in live right now. And again, podcast listeners, you don't have to be here live. Just go to consultaaron.com and you can share the same things, and we can work together in the same way. So. And you know what? If you don't want to put it out there publicly and you're catching the live version, that's fine. Go to consultaaron.com as well and reach out to me. So, okay. Well, I'm going to leave it at that since nobody seems to be ready to share anything right now. And that's okay. Right. Wherever we're at is perfectly fine, is what Kylene says. And I love that saying. So, with that being said, we'll go ahead and close up for today. Next week, I'm going to be joined by a fellow Success Principles trainer, Addie, and her and I have launched a program called the Radical Goal Getters. If you want to check that out, go over to radicalgoalgetters.com. But we're going to talk about achieving goals together, right? That accountability. And I think getting outside of our comfort zone is a great primer to lead into that. So take what we talked about here today, start putting that into use. And by next week, you're going to figure out even more strategies to, we've got 6 months left, a little less than 6 months left in the year. And I believe that everybody can achieve the goals that they wanted to achieve for themselves this year. So if you're not there yet, go check out radicalgoalgetters.com and see if that maybe is something that could be right for you. Or just reach out to me again, consultaaron.com, and happy to figure out how I can best support you towards achieving what you'd like to achieve, and towards building a business that you love. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close it out for today. So you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you next Saturday.